Hey guys, Philosopher here, and I'm here today with MobileGamer, and we're going to be talking about this blog post, this roadmap for the upcoming months. I have to say, some pretty big news about the game. I'd say some news that's very concerning to a lot of folks, and then some things that I think we're both excited about, some positive elements of it. It seemed to me, and I think you had a similar view, was that the big issue here is how they're gating teal gear, the new tier of gear that you're going to need for Dark Dimension 5, behind doing Doom Raid 2 for your alliance.
Right. And this is a different way of doing Dark Dimension because, like you mentioned to me earlier, if you there's kind of a way that you can leap from Dark Dimension 2 to Dark Dimension 3, Dark Dimension 4 with the rewards for each. You take the rewards from Dark Dimension 2, go to Dark Dimension 3, and so on, right?
Right.
It sounds like that's not going to happen with a Dark Dimension 5. It's going to be dependent on, you know, being in an alliance that is committed to the same goal as you and all working together. And then probably a good percentage of the alliance will be going in and completing Dark Dimension 5 at similar times, depending on. They said primary. The key word there was primary, right? They said as a primary source of the teal gear was going to be from Doom 2. So, of course, I assume that the secondary way is going to be ungodly amounts of money. And then there might be a third way to supply shop or something. I don't think they're
Right.
going to do the war store. I'm calling it now. I don't think like what you did with the war store where you hoarded war currency. I don't think that's going to help anybody in Dark Dimension 5. What do you think?
Well, I hope so. Yeah, they've been watching my videos and they're like, how can we completely screw over Philosopher for the race? Maybe the reason I figured they like the War Store is because it forces particularly free to play players to choose between shards that are hard to get and gear, and they love forcing you to make choices so that you want to spend money.
I'm
Um,
curious, how much currency do you have? Because I know how much currency I have.
like 870,000 or something.
Yeah, and I'm at 350,000. I suspect that they have spreadsheets and they know that players like you and myself are hoarding this currency, and I just don't feel like that is gonna. This is my prediction. This is not going to be a means to Dark Dimension 5.
Wow. Well, that'll suck for us. I mean, there will be things we can use it on, so it's like not worthless, but that'll be very disappointing to me. I mean, one thing I will just say is that for at least my philosophy on this is that hoarding is like anti-developer because their whole way of making money is based on bottlenecks, artificial bottlenecks. So if we hoard, we can circumvent their bottlenecks, make it so we don't have to spend money as much. And they hate that, right? They're trying to prevent that. So I got to say, I agree with you. By the way, so one thing here is the impact on new players. I think it's going to be like a glass ceiling. Like some new player is gonna they're going to get all this orange gear much easier. They're going to blow through DD2, DD3, DD4, and then they're going to be like, oh no, now what do I have to do? Right? They've got to get into an alliance and do all this Doom Raid crap. But I think my concern is how this is going to impact alliances. I spent some time on the beginner Discord, the Voltage Sauce beginner Discord yesterday, talking to get people's perspectives who are more mid-game players. And some of them are in these alliances where there's like 5 people who can do Doom Raids, but the rest of the alliance can't keep up, and they're carrying them. They're trying to figure out how to split it between U7 and Doom Raid. This is going to have an impact on those folks.
It will, but this is the third time that there's something like this where being in an alliance with like-minded players, not like-minded people that where your goals are aligned with the rest of your alliance. So I'm sure there's these casual alliances where you've got some people that are, they're TCPs through the stratosphere. Then you got some casual people, and then you got some real-world friends, and then that creates problems. It started with Silver Surfer being in the milestones, right?
Right.
Right? I mean, that was like, okay, if you want to get Silver Surfer, you got to be an alliance that's getting through the milestones. So, you're going to have to either stick with your friends or move along. Then the second version of this happened more recently with the Doom Raid, right? How many people in your alliance have Green ISO 5 to complete the Doom Raid? And then this is just the third version of the same idea where, this. So I don't think this consolidation is a sudden break just by this blog post or this idea. This is the third version of the same thing where, people. It seems like the idea is that you want to be in an alliance where everybody has the same purpose and same goals and the same intent and same level of activity, as opposed to these casual alliances where maybe some people are super try hard, some people are more casual.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think that there's a big jump though between having one character like Silver Surfer, no matter how good he is, versus like okay, you can't get through DD5. I mean, some of these newer players are like, now I feel like I can't like there's the kind of there I can't progress. Like there's this thing like everybody. A lot of people love having a lottery ticket because they think they have a chance to be a millionaire. It's like sort of like eventually you all believe like eventually I'm going to get there. And it's like here, there's this element like, wow, the road is really going to be long for me before like some of these folks don't see a way in which their alliance is ever going to get to. I'm sure they will, but eventually, but it's just,
I think you're dead on the hill. I think that this idea right here negatively impacts players that get into a position where they say, "Hey, I'm never going to get there. I'll get Doom I'll get Dormammu, whatever you say his name, in 2026." Right? I
right.
mean, I think that people that are in like you and I in top 10 alliances, we're like, okay, bring it. I think
Right.
this affects everybody else. It really does.
Correct.
I mean, more than just players in in-game alliances where everybody spent lots of money or they've been playing since the beginning of the game. But people that are just have been playing in the last couple of years, they're getting into it. They look at all of this and then it starts to settle in, and it might be just overwhelming and saying I'm getting further and further behind, and I think that's problematic because. Well, it just is, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I mean, look, just so everyone is crystal clear, you and I are the people, like you said, we are. This actually helps us. This advantages my alliance mates. And this is one of the things that's weird is, when I was racing in DD4, I was not in one of the top alliances, and I was just like nobody who was racing a much smaller TCP racing against them. And now that's not going to be possible. You can't have some dark horse in the DD5 race because they've got to be in an alliance that's raiding Doom Raid 2, which I imagine is going to be very, very difficult. So it's going to essentially lock out from at least the early DD5 people who aren't in this small group of alliances that are going to be doing this.
It's so let's say DD4 was gated behind 16 characters, right?
Right.
But you say that's fair. Now, so we're going to say DD5, the primary way to get the teal gear, which they've stated is going to be Doom Raid 2. So that means Doom Raid might be a minimum 23 characters, let's say, right?
Yeah.
23 characters. And the reason why I say 23 is because there's 5 sets, but we have Kestrel and Doom, which have 2 traits. And the thing is, we don't know what 23 characters. It may not be the same 23 characters that we're using to get through Doom difficulty 1.1. And you can see their intent there with like the skill team, right? We're talking
Right.
about, Captain America, Sam Wilson, and so on and so on. That entire Secret Avengers team, and you and I know the bio is ridiculously hard, right?
Correct.
What if symbiotes is not a part of that solution to get through Doom Raid 2? We don't know how they're going to tune it. We don't know how it's going to be presented, and it could be a different 23 characters or different 25 characters.
Yeah, that's an important point. And what just so everyone, I want to make sure everyone understands the point that the Mobile Gamer's making here. His point is they're going to probably make this super hard, and they could make it hard in ways that the current one isn't. They could make it have different debuffs, different challenges. And, for example, Secret Avengers, you just mentioned, there's a lot of folks who are like, I'm not doing Secret Avengers hard because I've already got my Red Guardian, my Night Nurse, and other characters built up. Well, they could just make it so you basically need Secret Avengers for Doom Raid 2, and then you're screwed. You got to build up these new characters from scratch.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the upside to newer players is that once it's discovered what 5 teams are needed to get through this Doom Raid 2, and we're making a big assumption that it's only going to be 5 teams.
Right.
There might be different teams for each node. I mean, who knows? I mean, there might be different solutions to each part of it, right?
Right.
And so I think symbiotes is a good way to think. I mean, symbiotes, I guess, will always be important because of their importance in Dark Dimensions, 2, 3, and 4, right?
Sure.
But let's talk about the resources that you and I potentially have wasted on characters like Red Guardian and Night Nurse. That might be something that a player that comes behind us won't have to deal with. They're going to just know that, hey, Zemo in skill is not going to be effective. You really need to put those resources into Sharon Carter. And I'm giving a hypothetical example. So, I mean,
right.
How this plays out, how this puzzle is going to be, it might be a simpler thing where, especially if you can use the same characters to get through Dark Dimension 4 that help you get through the Doom Raid 1 and then Doom 2. And so that way you're not wasting time developing characters that you don't need to. I mean, hopefully that's what happens, right?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I will just say, and you've been playing this game longer than I have, but this has really been, and you're right, this started earlier this year over the last 4 months, a real sea change in this game in that when I was coming up in this game, you basically created one team. You have like an arena team that you can use most of the same characters in raids, and you'd be building up, let's say, 5 to 10 characters, and that's all you needed to get yourself through raids and arena, and a lot of those characters you could use in Dark Dimension. Like, those days are over. They basically want you to be building, as you put it, like whether it's 23 characters or even more to get through Doom 1, Doom 2, Dark Dimensions, and so forth.
I mean, that's just the progression of the game, I suppose. I mean, they got to make things get more and more challenging, and they're doing that with legendaries too. You know, locking legendaries behind legendaries so that it's not just five
Sure.
characters. It's the characters needed to get Jubilee as well, so it's more than just five.
Yep, I agree with that. It's just more and more. Now, one thing I will say, as a side note, this character, this was I mean, obviously there was some sort of Russian data mine or whatever, or the Russian rumor turned out to be correct. But putting aside that point, it's interesting that we're getting characters twice in a row. It used to be that they alternated. I like this. Are you happy with that change?
I think DD3 was a big miss. I really do. Not only was it unreasonably hard and probably poor, I'm going to say DD3 was poorly designed.
Yeah.
It's generally, I mean, if you look at the contrast between DD2 and DD4, specifically DD4, other than Node 12, is a relatively player-friendly, fun experience that I enjoy. Node 12, but in the whole picture of DD3 was poorly designed and generally unfun. And to not have a character at the end really is like, what's the point? I really felt that way about DD3, and so bringing in a character for DD5, I think, is a no-brainer. I really think they should always have a character tied to these things.
Yeah, I agree. I have to say, I also wonder what the hell this guy's smiling about. He seems to, it's like he's happy at all the credit card money. There you go. He's like, yes. He's getting a royalty. But let's talk about some of this stuff. I mean, this was just like a non-information, like punting and.
Basically, you've been. I want to go back on this. I know you've been saying that they're not going to do the ISO 4. Do you really think that? I really think they're going to stick their guns on the ISO 4.
The ISO 4 they may do. I mean, they just told me they're not implementing the stuff as they put it in the playtest. And I wanted to be very clear about that because some folks, not you, but some folks were like telling people, start investing this and this based on that. And I'm like, you might want to hold off on your stuff because I wouldn't shock me if they change it around.
I know you get this question a lot, and I don't know if we want to go into this tangent here about hoarding resources, but I hope people are not thwarting their progress just to hoard for the sake of hoarding. I think in-game players hoard when there's no advantage to my roster. I mean, if I have a resource in my account that doesn't really do anything for me, why not save it, for something later? But I think, if I start in the game, there's not a lot to save. I think that would be a bad way of playing the game, actually.
100%. So early on, you're trying to invest and get your roster to a point where it can do everything. What I just encourage people to do is to think about, like, is this character doing everything I need it to do already? Because there's this element where, like, sometimes people just get the characters up for the sake of seeing numbers get larger, and then they'll realize, like, oh, like, it does. I've already Jubilee's doing everything I want, and I don't need her at a higher gear level or ISO.
If your Jubilee is landing those blinds, you're good. It's really
Exactly.
simple. Like, there's nothing more you need Jubilee to do other than to land blinds, because you're going to be getting your damage from Bishop. And then, and maybe even like even on a further tangent, is like, how strong do you need your Gamora to be, really? I mean, how strong do you need your Gamora to be? I don't know. Like, at some point, she gets the job done, and that's fine, right?
Yeah, and I've said this. I upgraded her to 7 red stars. Total waste. I mean, she does exactly the same thing she did at 6 red stars.
I waited for you and Rem to do it before I decided not to do it. I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't think it's going to be a good thing. And then hearing the feedback from you and Rem and other people that it's nice, but it really doesn't do anything. Yeah,
so it doesn't even cut off my time on the mirror match. It's the same amount of time. So anyways, all right, so let's talk a little bit. Real-time arena is just sort of like a dumpster fire. Let's just maybe move past this. I don't know what to say about this other than they're trying. I mean, I do like the fact that they're like, we don't know what we're doing yet, but we're listening to you, basically. We're trying.
You know how they have like those oil well fires and you know, and
In
they
the
throw
Gulf or something.
dynamite in it to put the fire out. And that's what they're trying to do with this is they're throwing dynamite into the fire, hoping that the negative air will put the fire out because it's a dumpster fire.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You had told me something when we had talked the other day, and you had told me something interesting about why you think RTA is not a very good game mode. Like it doesn't showcase what's actually good about MSF. The part of it
Right.
that actually can you explain it, folks? I thought that was so interesting.
Okay, so okay. First of all, you and I have been sim blitzing now, and the idea of sim blitz is that you kind of know who's going to win before you hit the sim button, right?
Right.
And when you load into RTA, you see your team and you see their team, and with 90% of the matches, you know who's going to win before the match loads up, because the team composition is what makes this game fun. So the most fun that I have in this game is, let's say, an alliance war. I see a problem. I see my opponent's team. I see what room they're in. And then I'm trying to take the most efficient team into that battle that's a hard counter or some sort of counter to it. The match is decided before I go into the battle by just selecting the correct team. None of that happens in RTA. None of that ever happens in RTA. I think that's what this game really is, and what makes these hero collector games. And I know we're going to talk about Grand Arena and Galaxy of Heroes. That is, Grand Arena and Galaxy of Heroes is 100% a game mode about that. Your opponent has a team placed on defense. You take the smartest, logical team to counter that team efficiently, and that is what's fun. The match is not really necessarily decided in the gameplay, very rarely.
Yeah, you can misplay, but that's what you'd have to do. Like click the wrong button or you target the wrong enemy. But I agree with you 100%.
If you pick the right team, you can misplay a lot.
Correct.
It's more about. I mean, there's just certain matchups where if you pick the correct team, like I'll give you an example: Astonishing X-Men versus
like Asgardians or
Sinister
something.
Six.
Yeah, or Sinister Six.
Sinister Six. It's hard to misplay that.
Right.
It really is. I mean, the punch-up has to be pretty strong for you to misplay it. And there's a lot of forgiveness in the way you play it because you picked the right team. It was the correct matchup. And that's just completely lost. It's a big miss. RTA doesn't have this concept at all. It's basically ignoring a large part of the game, which is picking the correct team to counter a team does not happen in RTA at all.
Yeah, the funny thing about it is that when they first introduced the versus PvP, I loved it. It was my favorite game mode, and I was doing tournaments and all this stuff because it had that draft. The draft. That's what I was gonna say.
Drafting is that.
Exactly.
Now, you're 100% trying to say, I know that this character is a hard counter to that character, and there was a lot of opportunities like that. Doc Ock versus Yo-Yo, stuff like that.
Right.
A certain character could ruin the other team.
Yeah.
And you're just like, Doc Ock's a great example. You know, he could offset an Ebony Maw or a Yo-Yo or negate their pick. It's brilliant, and that does not happen in RTA at all.
Right, that's what I'm saying. That was what was fun about it. It's like, oh crap, he took Black Bolt. Do I take Yo-Yo so he can't play a Yo-Yo with Black Bolt or whatever? Right, whatever the strategy is. But you were learning one at a time what the other team was going to be. There was an element of fun to that actually worked with this game. That it got lost in this.
Completely destroyed, and I think fundamentally RTA ignores what this game is about.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And now this is just sort of like, hey, we're working on this. This is super vague. The rest of the stuff, though, was like very good, right? I mean, we're like, for the most part, save squads, like hard to complain about that. Although I don't understand why new players can't just get all the save squads, but whatever. Auto basic, there's nothing. I don't have a complaint about this. Are you concerned about it at all? Anything?
No. My two issues with these, I think both of these features should have been brought to the game a long time. And the analogy for me is like, you walk into a McDonald's and say, do you have French fries? And the manager says, yes. Are you excited? Why didn't we have this 6 months or a year ago or 2 years ago? I don't understand why this wasn't in the game, like specifically save squads. Why wasn't it in the game day one? I can't understand this.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then this, it's hard to care about that. This could be huge. We'll see. We'll see how much resources they actually put to getting this done. They've been talking about it more than they've actually been doing. And the API, I feel like they got one guy working on it or something. I don't care about costumes. Maybe you care deeply about costumes. I think.
I like the newer costumes. They're getting more interesting. For
Yeah, it's cool, but let's talk a little bit about Grand Tournament, which is essentially a ripoff of Grand Arena from Star Wars
But I'm happy
Galaxy.
with. I'm
I
really
love
happy
it.
with this.
Oh, I
This
love
is great.
this. Yes,
And
and
you've been you. I actually want to hear your take on this because you just started playing Galaxy of Heroes, you in the intermediate term. And what's your take on Grand Arena? And is it fun for you? I mean,
I love it. Yeah, so Grand Arena is basically a single player alliance war. Okay, you have some rooms, the other guy's got some rooms. You put some of your teams down on defense, and then you've got to counter their teams. And then you just like you would in alliance war, you got some teams on offense and you use them. The cool thing is you could see their roster, at least in Galaxy Heroes, and then you can say, okay, well, he's got this team. Should I put, let's say I know he's got a good X-Men team. Should I really put my Sinister Six on defense? Like that sort of thing. And then you also, in Galaxy Heroes, get points based on how efficiently you win the battle. Do you win, do you just bring in two characters, like just Longshot and Shatterstar, or do you bring, to beat five or something like that? Are all your units full health at the end? That sort of thing gets you extra bonuses. Super fun. Now, one thing I will say, and I'm very interested to see, I think that they did it differently here, is that, in room bonuses are, I think that's like undeniably good. Would you agree with me on that?
yeah, because it's going to keep it mixed up for sure. I mean, the way certain teams play with room bonuses, and then some certain teams, start with defense up anyways. Why would you want them in a defense up room? Things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Or like a room where everyone's got disrupted, so you're not going to get your buffs on spawn or something.
The hard counter to your team really gets screwed by disrupted, so you put it in the reactor room. There's a million ways that this is going to be great.
Yeah, and by the way, you know a lot, of course, about Galaxy of Heroes as well. For any of you who don't know, you are essentially MobileGamer's a legend in Galaxy of Heroes. Years later, years after you left the game, people still watch your videos and put your content out there and share your image. I mean, it's like you're a big deal still in Galaxy Heroes. So let me ask you this: one thing that at least nowadays in Galaxy Heroes is that Grand Arena is amazing for free-to-play players. Because in Galaxy of Heroes, it's like a collection power determines your division. And so if you basically, if you're free to play, you sit there at 99999 collection power instead of going to 1,000,000 so that you're at the top of that. And then everybody else, it's kind of equalized. And but here, I find it interesting. It sounds to me like the divisions are based on how well you do. It may be different here. What do you think about that?
Well, they're gonna make it different. They want their own flavor on it. And there's a couple differences between Galaxy of Heroes and Marvel Strike Force that can make this game mode very different. Galaxy of Heroes, the teams over there are less cookie cutter, and they also have mods. So there's more variance and there's more opportunity to switch things up. On the flip side, Marvel Strike Force has these room bonuses, so that's really where the opportunity plays in making teams unique. Now, where this game mode will live and die, and you started to say it, is going to be matchmaking.
Right.
Really, I mean, we already have horrid matchmaking, not only in RTA but in Alliance Wars, almost daily. And so, what confidence do I have that matchmaking is going to work correctly in this game mode? Galaxy of Heroes really struggled with matchmaking, and it took 6 months to a year to get it right. And they had to shift away from total collection power to something, and they never disclosed the formula, but we were able to figure it out. And it was based, and I gave the analogy, I think, on the stream is like, if they had to, basically you have an effective roster, right? Let's say that there's you're playing 8 teams on defense, 8 teams on offense, so that's what, 80 characters, right? Or
Right.
16 teams, 16 times 5, right? 80 characters. And so rather than matching up my TCP versus your TCP, and I think our rosters is a perfect example of how this could go sideways.
Right.
I have a 16.5. I think you're closer to 15.5.
Correct.
But your roster is super lean. Like, I know you ravage your sisters at 1. I haven't
Right.
seen your roster, but it is right.
Correct.
And so even if we got matched up, you would win because your effective roster, your top 80 characters, is better than my top 80 characters, even though I have a higher collection power. And so this was a problem that happened in Galaxy of Heroes, and they never disclosed the formula, but we kind of figured it out that it was the top 80 characters, and they were matching people off the top 80 characters rather than their entire rosters.
Yeah.
It's just little things like that are going to make a difference, whether this game mode is absolutely horrid and where a lean roster is better than an old roster.
Yeah, I think that's the concern that I have, especially if they make it about efficiency when they haven't been doing that up till now. I do worry that it's going to be one way or the other. I could see this being a source of frustration from players who are like, man, every matchup's unwinnable. This is a BS game mode. The other thing, by the way, there is one group of people who probably aren't going to like this game mode, which is people who've been ignoring war. And we know that there are people out there who are just like, I don't like war. I don't like alliance war, so I'm not going to build any war teams. If your teams get war bonuses in this, which isn't...
I don't know how that... They might make grand tournament bonuses. You know how they are.
Oh, yeah, right.
Oh, grand tournament defense bonus. Grand tournament offense bonus.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. So we'll see. We'll see. Well, you know what? Look, I think it's time. We're gonna continue the conversation over at your channel. I'm gonna put the link below. I'm going to put the link not only to MobileGamer's YouTube channel, but I'll put his Discord below as well. Check him out and I'm going to have my Discord link below as well as.
Go join Philosopher's Discord. I don't really use my Discord. You've got a much better Discord than mine.
Oh wow, I'll take it. All right.
I'm not a big fan of Discord. I'm just not. I don't know what it is. I'm just not a fan.
All right, sounds good. Well, I'll see you over here in channel.